Hi everyone, welcome to Unity Worship Center. I'm really glad to be here today. My name is Leanne Gonzalez for those of you that are new to Unity. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've been in the mental health system for approximately almost a decade, maybe even more. I didn't initially start out that way, but currently I'm a program director for families and children. I work in family support services, so we do a lot of field work in helping our families to come together in order to help their children to have a better quality of life and be able to function as a family. Especially with all the challenges that parents can have when they're raising their children who have either mental health or behavioral issues. So I'm really excited because this is a new position that I just entered in, and it's a new challenge for me as I haven't worked with children in quite some time. But most of my career I've worked with adults and families. I've helped a lot of adults who've had severe mental illness. So typically what that would look like would be adults that have endured challenges with like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, severe depression and anxiety, a lot of co-occurring disorders like depression and substance use, or anxiety and health issues, physical health issues. So that's been a lot of what my career has been, is dedicating my services to helping adults and their families. And why I do this, I don't believe I naturally wanted to come in this field. It just kind of came upon me. I felt like it was a calling that God had given me. When I went to college, I went for a communications degree, and I did finish that degree. My plan was to go into journalism and public relations because I loved to write, and I still do write from time to time. But it wasn't until I sought my own therapy during my undergrad that God really opened my eyes to what He wanted me to do. My therapist at that time, she was really monumental in just my life, really impacting me spiritually, and just helping me to see, what I really wanted for myself and for my family, because I was going purposely because there was a lot of issues that I was still dealing with when it came to my family. So when I went to therapy, I had asked her one day if she believed that I would be good in this field, because I really knew nothing about mental health or therapy. And right away, without hesitation, she said, "You would be perfect." She's like, "I just know that this is what God wants you to do." And to have somebody like that, to have that belief in me, I just knew this was the right field for me. And at that time, I had just been barely getting into a job position that had to do with mental health. I was working in a group home. And so when I was working in a group home, I had to help a lot of teens who were pregnant and on probation. And I was just a case manager. So that's where I think I got a lot of my thick skin, because of course it's not easy dealing with adolescents that are pregnant by that. So, you can imagine that there's a lot of hormones and just their backgrounds that they came from, a lot that they're carrying with them when they're coming into a new environment and meeting people that are now telling them what to do and how to live. I was only in my early 20s, and I think a lot of people say I don't look my age now. You can imagine back then, being in my early 20s, I looked like I was like 16 or 17 years old. So It was not easy. A lot of the girls didn't really take me seriously, but it wasn't until I actually developed that relationship with the girls that I was persistent and consistent in my message and caring for them and wanting to help them to address some of their issues, that they began to trust me and open up to me. And that's when I knew for sure that this was what God wanted me to do. So once I graduated from undergrad, I went straight into my master's program and studied for marriage and family therapy, and the rest is history. Just God opened many doors for me to keep moving ahead, keep moving up. And for the longest time, I was already even starting to manage programs, even when I didn't have my license yet. So I just knew God was paving the way for me, because not a lot of people in my position, being unlicensed and previously, would even be allowed to manage programs. But I was grateful that I was given this opportunity to do that. And so now, 3 years now, I have been licensed. I'm now running my own program, and I'm just really grateful for what God has done in my life. So the main reason why I do what I do is because of how it's all come together, and then what I've grew up to face. So I did grow up with a lot of different challenges, in my life. I come from a family that has dealt with a lot of mental health challenges, as well as addiction issues, marriage troubles, domestic violence. I mean, the list probably goes on and on. But of course, I'm thankful to God that there is a happy ending to that, because God has truly worked in my family and restored them. And, I can, stand very grateful and to God that He's, not only delivered a lot of my family members from their mental illnesses and their addictions, but now they're walking today to testify of God's goodness in their life. So I'm really grateful for that. But all this to say, I want to come here today to tell you my personal testimony, because I believe that it's the reason God has truly just continued to pave the way in my life and in my career, to help me to truly understand what my clients and my families have went through, and just to open my eyes to give me greater insight into myself and into the relationships that I'm in and that I'm continuing to build in my life. So I want to go back to 2000, I want to say it was maybe two or 3 years into my marriage, which was probably around 2013. 2012, 2013, I started to have panic attacks really bad, to where, a lot of hyperventilating, and not being able to sleep at night, because the anxiety was just very, prominent throughout my body. You could just feel a lot of the tension. And then I started really suffering from what the doctor had diagnosed me with Restless Leg Syndrome. So I had that really bad in addition to having the panic attacks. And honestly, when it came to the panic attacks, it just happened out of the blue. It was very unexpected. I was going through a lot of stress at that time. I was struggling in my marriage. I was a workaholic. I mean, I worked a lot of hours. Sometimes I even would work at home. And I know, that's a big thing you don't want to do, but at that time I was very new in my career, so I was always trying to give it my all. And so I think, all of the circumstances in my life, increased that stress, and I think that's what led to me having those panic attacks at that time. But of course, when you have a panic attack, there's a difference from knowing what causes the panic attack and then when it actually happens. I felt like I was going to die. I felt like maybe it was something else. Maybe there was something wrong with my body that was causing me to, have these panic attacks. So, a lot of things were going through my mind at that time. And so I think when mental illness first hits you, you really don't know how to deal with it. And I think that was me at the time. I felt like I was trying to look for every way possible to try and manage what I was going through. And it wasn't easy. It's like I was trying so hard to figure out, like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling this way? I felt so helpless. And I felt like no one understood what I was going through. Everyone was giving me, oh, you can do this, or you can do that, or you can try this, or, and I know everyone meant well, and they, cared about me, and they wanted the best for me. But, when you're alone at night and you're not sleeping, and it's kind of like the world and the people in your life go silent, and all you're left is to yourself and your thoughts. And that's what I felt. I felt very alone, especially nighttime. Nighttime I dreaded it because I knew that's when I was going to probably go through another night without sleeping. And it was just really difficult at that time. And so eventually, I had to come to the point, like, okay, I'm getting all of this great advice from everybody, but I had to just go to God, like, God, I'm just going to remove all the voices and just, God, what do you want me to do? Because it seems like I can't figure it out, and everybody else is trying to help me figure it out, but I think it's only causing me more, anxiety. And I just really want, something simple and just very direct. And so that's when I decided for the very first time, which was very scary for me, to go get help. So I went to see a psychiatrist, and he prescribed me an antidepressant. And it was just for nighttime, so it could help me get some rest. And it worked, and then it didn't, but I just continued to take it so that way I could function and be able to do what I needed to do, is go to work and, still be with my family, still be with my husband, and try to work on, being normal, whatever that looked like for me at that time. So that's what I did. And I eventually got better. And I didn't have the panic attacks anymore. And then I stopped that medication for maybe like a year or 2 years. I was off the medication. And I just continued to live my life again. But then it wasn't until 2014, probably like 2 years later and 4 years into my marriage, that's when me and my husband, we continued to have growing difficulties in our marriage, and I was still working a lot, growing in my career, and I made some poor decisions in my marriage that not only affected my relationship with my husband, but also it affected my mental health. It was very traumatizing to the point to where I had separated from my husband for a little while, and then when I came back, that's when my mental health just went down the drain, pretty much. I had full-blown anxiety. I didn't have any panic attacks, but the anxiety was really bad. I had full-blown depression, and these were things that I could not help. Like, it was like my mind and my body were telling me, like, something threatening is going on in your life, and everything inside me just went haywire. I could not sleep, and this was worse than the first time when I could not sleep. And what I meant by that is, or what I mean by that is, I couldn't sleep for consecutive days at a time. There was one time I didn't sleep for 11 days. It was really awful. There were periods throughout months and months where I would go without sleep for 4 days, and then another time 5 days, and another time 6 days. So you can imagine, when somebody doesn't get their sleep, your body is losing a lot of function. I couldn't think straight. I was losing a lot of weight. I lost my appetite. I was very agitated. I was irritable. And, a lot of you who know me, you know that I'm very friendly and caring, and I'm pretty much cheerful. A lot of the times I'm always smiling. So to see me in that condition, for my family and my husband to see me in that condition, it was totally out of my character. Like, I was truly in a very poor state, to the point in my career where I had to quit my job, and I intentionally made that decision because I knew that I was not going to give my clients the services that they deserved in the condition that I was in. And that was a really hard decision for me to make, because at that point I pretty much thought my career was over. Like, I was going to live this way for the rest of my life. And that's how poor my state of mind was then. I didn't really have any hope to come out from that place in my life. And though I knew why I was going through those things, because of my decisions and of course what I was going through at that time, it's still a very hard thing to accept, and it's also a very helpless state to be in. So it wasn't until there was one night, and I hope this doesn't trigger anyone, because some of the memories that I have are very vivid. So hopefully, this is something that you guys can handle. But there was one night, of many nights that I wasn't sleeping, and I was just, crying out to God, and I was telling him, I'm just tired. I'm very tired of living this way. And by tired, meaning just like my body has taken a beating, my mind has taken a beating, and I just don't want to live this way anymore. And I would tell God, if you just want to take me now, just take me now, because I don't want to be like this. And so to have that state of mind to the point to where I didn't want to live anymore, it's like my spirit took a shock, because that's when God opened my eyes, and I became very scared at the thought of me thinking that I wanted to die. Like, I would have never thought in my life that I would have thought that way, because just the amazing things that God has done in my life, what He's brought me through, being saved, baptized at 11 years old, receiving the Holy Ghost at 11 years old, doing so much for the church, and serving, people in the community, doing outreach. I mean, I did so much, and I've gotten so much from God. I never thought that night I would think that way. And so when I had that instant shock of fear in my mind, like, why am I even thinking this way? Like, I knew that I needed to get help, that I couldn't just do it, just by myself, and I couldn't do it with the people around me telling me what they think I should do. Like my friends, my family, people from church, and everyone meant well, but I knew I needed professional help at that point because it's very serious. To me it is, because I've seen it so much throughout my career. It's very serious when somebody says that they want to die or that they want to kill themselves, they want to harm themselves. That to me is very serious. So I knew if I thought that even only once, I needed to get help. So that's what I did. And so I went to see a psychiatrist, but this time I went to see someone different because I really needed someone to really hear what I had to say. Because I don't know if those of you who have seen a professional, psychiatrist or a therapist, it's not easy finding someone that works for you. And so for me, I knew what I needed help with, and I needed someone to listen to what my needs were. So when I went to see a psychiatrist, this was my second one during this time period, I told him, if you help me to focus on my sleep, help me to focus on my sleep, I said, I will make sure to work on the rest, meaning the anxiety and the depression, because I already knew why I was going through this. I already knew why, but I needed to function in order to work at it, because again, just remembering that my body was very weak, my mind was very weak, I could not function to the point where I had to quit my job. So I told my psychiatrist, just help me to sleep. So he said, okay, that's what we'll do. And so he, trial and error, different medications. He tried me on actual sleep medication, which can be very addictive. But grateful to God, those medications did not even help me at all. I didn't even sleep a wink with those. Tried me on antidepressants, those didn't work. Tried me on anti-anxiety medications, those didn't work. And finally, he tried me on an antipsychotic, which is a sedative. If those of you who are familiar with antipsychotics, they help to bring you rest and calm. And usually people who have psychotic episodes usually take it because there's a lot of pent-up energy when they're experiencing voices or delusions like paranoia. So he put me on a very low dose of the antipsychotic, and he was very literal, which was kind of amazing to me. That's how I knew God was working through him. Even though I knew he wasn't a believer, God can use people in any facet, any way. Mm-hmm. So I knew God was working through him because he was very literal. He's like, Leanne, this may not help you sleep the first night. You may not even sleep the second night, but you will sleep on the third night. And so my thought was at this point, whatever, like nothing has worked. So this is kind of like my last resort. At that point, I think I had gone like 8 days without sleep. So at that point, I had pretty much like, okay, whatever. Like it didn't really mean much to me. But I think it was those words that really helped, because I remember laying in bed that third night, which was the 11th day without sleep, and I was looking at the ceiling another night thinking, okay, I'm not going to sleep. And I told God, I'm just done, like, meaning like there's nothing that's helping me right now, so you know what, God, I'm just going to give it to you, like, just take it. And I just felt like all of the cares that I was carrying, all of the anxiety, all of the paranoia about not sleeping, all of that just like left. It's like I don't know if I would call it a weight, but it was like a lot of pressure just left. Because I remember that verse, when God tells you to give, you have to like give up your life, like not care. I don't know if not care about your life, but you're giving up your life. You're surrendering your life. And so that's what I felt like I did. Like I was just giving God my life. Like I didn't matter anymore. The things in this world didn't matter anymore. All my ambitions, whatever I had set out to do, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that it was just me and God. And I needed to just have my eyes on Him. And that night, I think I slept for like a half hour.
She slept so.
And it's probably not so funny at that time, but when I woke up, I mean, I had an awful dream because you got to remember, I hadn't slept in so long, and so when you actually do sleep, most of the time you will have really bad dreams. So I had a really bad dream, but I woke up and I was crying, and I pushed my husband. I woke him up from his sleep, and I told him, I slept for a half hour, and I had like tears all down my face, and I was scared and I was happy because I had slept, but I was scared because I had woke up from an awful dream. But I just knew that this was the little hope that I needed to continue down the road and see what else God wanted to do in me. So gradually over the years, God helped me, with the use of my psychiatrist and medication. I was able to sleep more and more, and to eventually where I was sleeping daily. But it definitely took years. I was on that medication for 7 years, 7 years of my life. And of course I had bouts of insomnia, but it was nothing compared to what I had first endured. So throughout my journey, God has really taught me so much. And, when I look at my life back then, I knew the word that constantly popped into my head, that God was sustaining me. And He was teaching me that He could use even the bad choices that I've made and make them good. And meaning that He's just used me to, serve. I went back to work. I continued to grow in my career. I had more understanding of what my clients and my families were going through, because of obviously I went through my own struggles personally. I also learned a lot spiritually, that sometimes God is not in the business of just giving you a healing. Sometimes He's using our sufferings to open our eyes to new things about ourselves, about other people. I mean, I felt like every day God was teaching me how to evaluate my life, how to evaluate the decisions I was making.
That's good.
God was teaching me that it was so important to renew my mind every single day in Him, to take captive my thoughts, because it's so easy, if you really think about it, it's so easy to just get distracted, to get comfortable, to let other things take place, before God. And I knew that if I was comfortable, that I was in the danger zone, that I was getting laxed, whether it be in my marriage, my spiritual life, my doing community service, or being in church, or if I was too comfortable, that was not good for me. Or if I was isolating, or if I was in bed all day, or if I was just watching TV for long hours, or on social media for long hours. None of those things were good for me. I knew that that could bring me back to a place that I didn't want to be in. So I really had to evaluate every day and use the Word of God, prayer, the support of my family and friends. I can't tell you how many times I've had really wonderful friends in my life help me during my most difficult times. My husband, willing to wake up, or because I forced him to wake up a lot of nights to pray with me, to pray over me when I was very anxious. For people to just listen, to my story and just be sensitive to what I was going through. And I think those times really helped. But the biggest miracle happened within the last year and a half. And I'm really, really excited to tell everyone about this, because I do believe that God can do the impossible, and He can heal you from mental health struggles. He can heal you from physical health conditions. He can heal you from addiction issues. God can do that. I am a testimony. I have so many people in my life that are a testimony of God's healing. And after 7 years of taking my medication, in August of last year, my medication stopped working. I was starting to sleep less and less every night. And at that time, at that point in my life, I already had grown a lot. I already healed a lot. I was back in church again. My marriage has been going really well for the last couple of years, just growing and just learning from me and my husband, and in our marriage and spiritually. A lot of great things. I was growing in my career even more. God was doing wonderful things. And so I felt like I wasn't really going under any particular stress at that time. So my medication, it just stopped working, and I just stopped sleeping again. And so I was a little bit scared, but not to the point to where I had a lot of anxiety, or and I always thought, this is not my worst. I've been through worse. So there was a night, I think maybe it was like on my third day of not sleeping, and then I called Sister Kayla, which she's always been available, which I really love her. She's a dear friend of mine. I called Sister Kayla that night, and I was telling her about my situation. She had already knew a little bit about what I was going through, how I had been on medication for some time. And I was telling her that, I'm not sleeping again. What do you think? I was literally asking her, I'm like, what do you think God is trying to tell me? I'm like, do you think this is Him trying to tell me I don't need this medication anymore? Because I had been praying about it, at least the last couple of years. There was a point in my life where I was thinking to myself, God, there has to be more than this. Meaning, like, I thank you, God, for all of the things you're doing for me, but for my mental health, I want to know, is this it, or is there more for me? And I think God was answering that prayer. So when I talked to Sister Kayla, she didn't answer that question for me, because she really wanted to give me, to empower me to make that decision, which I'm very grateful for her doing. She's like, well, Leanne, I can't decide that for you, but I'll pray with you, and God will definitely show you what you need to do. So she prayed over me, and I was so grateful, because it's like the prayers that people, give you and with you, they're so powerful, and God used Sister Kayla to really speak into me, speak into my life. And I just knew in that prayer that God wanted me to get off my medication. I just knew it for a fact because everything just aligned. It was something I was praying about. God knew that I wanted more of Him. I wanted to see more of what He can do. And it wasn't about, I felt like this request was not selfish. It wasn't me just thinking of myself. I knew God wanted to do this for me so that He could use me even more for His kingdom. I felt like I was very kingdom-minded in my request toward Him. So when she prayed over me, I just felt an instant confirmation. And when I hung up the phone, this is the part that really gets to me because it's a very powerful moment for me, where I got my medication from the drawer that's in the kitchen, and I held it up and I told God, God, thank you for allowing this medication to help me for 7 years, to help me to get to the place where I'm at now, where I'm rested, where my mind is at peace, and I hold all confidence in you that you know exactly what you're doing. And I told him, God, I'm going to throw away these medications, and not because I expect a healing, but because I know you're going to sustain me no matter what. Even if I don't sleep, I know you're going to still give me your strength. I know you're going to allow people in my life to just wrap around me and keep me strong. And you're going to help me to live my life doing what you want me to do. So I'm not going to quit my job. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep living my life and doing what you need me to do. And then I just said amen, and I tossed my medication in the trash. And that was a real powerful moment for me because that whole week I did not sleep. But every morning I got up, I got ready, I prayed, I would listen to different preachings, I'd go to work, I would have the most wonderful counseling sessions with my clients. You know, God was using me during that most difficult time when my body was weak, but my mind was very strong. So I knew God was giving me everything that I needed to function at my best. It was all Him. I knew it was all Him. And I think after that week, I started to sleep again, little by little, a few hours here, a few hours there, and then to the point where I was sleeping every single night, and during the weekends, like 10 hours sleeping in.
Healing.
Yeah, and so when I told my mom, when I told my husband, they were just like shocked that I had, been off my medication. I mean, my mom was scared. When I told her I was going to get off my medication, she was like, no, don't get off your medication. I'm like, Mom, I know this is what God wants. I mean, and for very well reason, because my mom saw me at my worst. She was actually taking care of me at my worst when it was really bad. So I told Mom, this is different. I just know it. And then my husband just got to witness God do amazing things in my life. And it's been wonderful. And, it wasn't until this last 2 weeks when I started a new position at my job that I started to suffer again from insomnia. But it didn't scare me one bit. It's like I always said, God, you're going to sustain me. You know what you're doing. And I just trust in you. That's all I could do is just, God, I just trust in you. I didn't think any other way because I already knew all of the great things that He's done for me, even in my most darkest moments, were just amazing to witness God's glory in my life, whatever that looked like. And so I truly believe that God has just been with me through this whole time, and He used all of the tools and people in my life to help me to get to where I am. such as my psychiatrist, my medication, my clients and my families and my friends, the church, prayer, the word, listen to a lot of podcasts and preachings, being able to just be in community with other like-minded people in Christ has helped. So I literally had to do the things that I taught my clients to do every day to take care of yourself, because it's so easy to go backwards when you don't take care of yourself, and I try not to think of anxiety or depression as a disease, but more as a warning sign that your body is giving you because you're not doing what you can to take care of your life. Or it could be the circumstances in your life that are causing your body to feel threatened, and a lot of times that can escalate into feelings of anxiety or depression or any other mental health symptoms. So I felt like that was the case for me, that if my life is being threatened in any kind of way, whether it be by my doing or the environment's doing or other people's doing, or spiritual, it can be so many things. Whatever the case, I knew that I had to evaluate my life. I needed to go into the Word. I needed to pray. I needed to seek counsel. I needed to make sure that I was renewing my mind daily. I don't think God created us to be stagnant.
Amen.
He didn't create us to be comfortable. He created us to, and I always would say when I was on Facebook, I don't know if those of you who were with me on Facebook for 20-something years, I think I've been on Facebook for a long time, but I just recently, I got off last year. But I would always say that my life is not my own. That verse has stuck with me for a long time. My life is not my own. It belongs to God. And so I try to live that way, that God, this is not my body, this is not my mind, everything that you've given me is not mine. I said, this is all because of you and the gifts that you've given me to be able to work for you in your kingdom. And so I try to operate that way, because if I don't, then it's going to become about me. And I know me is my worst enemy. I can't live in my flesh, and speaking literally, I can't live for myself, because I know living for myself brought a lot of pain. Thinking for myself, or what I think is right, or even when people tell me, "Oh, Leanne, you got to be happy. Do you?" I knew that wasn't a way to live. When somebody told me, "Oh, Leanne, you just got to be happy. Do what you know is best." I always constantly thought to myself, and it's probably the Spirit convicting me. God would say, "No, Leanne, you got to do what I tell you to do." I'm the one that's going to give you more than happiness. I'm going to give you complete joy. Even when things are chaotic in your life, I'm going to still give you joy. Even when you're not sleeping for several nights, I'm going to help you to rejoice, because you're witnessing the glory that I'm going to just present and display all throughout your life and those around you. And that's exactly what He's done. And so that's why I know that God is just the most greatest thing that I've ever experienced in my life, and has truly brought me out of just many dark times. And so I live that way now. I try to just make sure that I'm operating to the point to where I'm constantly denying myself, denying my flesh, and giving it all to God, because I know that's what is expected of me and truly what I want to do. And so I have a few verses that have come to mind, or that have really been engraved on my heart throughout my journey, and I wanted to share it with you all. The first one is in Matthew 11:28 through 30. So that's Matthew 11:28 through 30, and it's a familiar verse. But I think for me, God truly showed me what this verse meant. It states, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Mm-hmm. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." So I would definitely proclaim that promise in my prayers, especially at nighttime. One of my sleepless nights. But I really wanted to understand what this meant, because it's so easy to look at this and say, God will give you rest physically. He'll give you rest physically and just, help you to de-stress for the day, which God can do that for you. But for me, I knew this meant that God was going to sustain me, even in the midst of me feeling unrested physically, or my mind feeling exhausted. I knew my spirit was going to be at rest. I knew my mind was going to be at peace, because God was helping me to see that no matter what I go through, that He is going to give me His strength. Even if I didn't feel it, I knew that He was giving it, because I was able to function. I was able to do what I normally do. And so that's how I took that. And I think that's what helped me to be able to actually rest, to not be surrounded by, tormenting thoughts of not being able to sleep, or thinking that I was going to live a miserable life for the rest of my life because I was going through such mental anguish. Thinking that I was going to have these restless legs, forever. And so, there were just a lot of things that would used to go through my mind in the past. But now, I don't think any of those things. I just know God, He has my spirit at peace. My mind is at peace, because I'm constantly working on living for Him. And it really just helps me.
Amen.
The next one I have is the next verse, Psalm 73:26. And I love Psalms because, of course, David, he was a man after God's heart. I'm sure David had many nights where he was dealing with a lot of mental anguish. He really poured out his heart to God and told everything that he was feeling. And he also made a lot of mistakes in his life, and that probably, caused him a lot of pain, and it caused a lot of people in his life to suffer too. So if God can hear the prayers of David, then I knew He could hear the prayers of me. Amen. So every time I think about David, I'm just truly feel connected to him, because he just was very transparent in the Word. He really opened his heart to tell God everything that he was dealing with. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. So right here, David knew his own life, it's going to fail. Like, we're not meant to be here, right? We're all meant to be in paradise with Jesus. We don't belong here. We're only here to do what he wants us to do, to help his people. And so I think David, he was able to just be vulnerable in that moment to let God know that his flesh and his heart, they may fail. They're weak. They're not going to always be counted on. Like, I can't always count on my body and my mind. I have to rely on God for that. And so he asked God to be his portion, to be able to take the place of himself so that he could keep moving forward and doing what he needed to do for his kingdom. So that verse has really helped me. Again, a lot of these verses always pointing toward God being your sustainer. I'm a huge believer in that. He's going to sustain you no matter what. John 14:27 is another verse that I really like. And I love John too. He's one of actually my favorite people in the Bible, because God loved him so much. I think he probably favored John over all the other disciples. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know that. John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. So again, we can't rely on this world to bring us peace. We have to rely on God. Even when things are chaotic all around us, God can still give us his peace by his Spirit. And what I mean by that is an assurance, a security. It's like you may see your family breaking apart. You may see someone just deeper in their addiction. You may even physically be deteriorating. But because you have Christ living in you, because you have his Spirit, he gives you this security and assurance to know that he's with you through it all. And that alone is what had given me strength to know that he's going to give me his peace even when things around me don't look peaceful, which according to the world would appear, right? So I just really like that verse. It really speaks a lot to me. So the last verse I have is 2 Corinthians 12:7-10. And this is kind of the message that I've been giving you throughout this evening. It's a very popular verse. And I'm just going to actually I'll read the whole thing, but there's one verse that really sticks out. So 7-10, 2 Corinthians 12:7-10. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And this is one of my favorite verses. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Mm-hmm. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distress for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. That verse, those verses speak so much. Not only in the beginning does Paul again tell you, you need to get rid of yourself. You need to bring yourself low, right? Humbling yourself and let God receive the glory in all of the things that you're doing. And sometimes for that to happen, circumstances are going to come into your life. And in this case, it was like a thorn in Paul's side, on his in his flesh. And sometimes I think that's my life. Sometimes I think I have a lot of thorns in my body and God's just trying to tell me, like, Leanne, don't let it get to your head. Don't get comfortable. This is not you, this is me. Whatever God is doing in my life, constantly redirecting my eyes back to him, my spirit back to him, remembering what he's brought me out of, the people, the special people he's brought into my life. I can't thank God enough for just the amazing things he's done in my life and what I've learned. And I do my best. I'm not perfect in my life and my walk with Christ, but I really do my best to not take what he's done for me for granted. And any chance that I get, I'd like to share my testimony with people, especially that are going through their own personal difficulties, because I know that God can use me to speak, to them. And I've been wanting to talk to, Unity guests for a long time. I've been wanting to be able to tell my testimony wherever God would give me the chance, because it's, to me, it's very powerful, and not a lot of people talk about, the mental health challenges they've gone through. It's not easy to talk about. Maybe a lot of people don't see mental health the way that I see it. But I do believe that God can use different things to help that individual to recover and to really, gain their life in Christ. And I want to leave that with you guys today, because if you guys are struggling right now, whether it be, addiction issues, mental health challenges, family challenges, the list can go on and on. God can and will intervene in your situation, and all it takes is for you to reach out. All it takes is for you to be willing to be open about what you're going through. And God will give you and send you the right things and people in your life to help you, because he knows where your heart is at and what you need in that moment. So I just wanted to leave that with you guys, and I think that is pretty much what I wanted to share.
So the first Thursday of the month, you're returning for another session?
Yes. So this is to kick off. What I've given to you today is to kick off Mental Health Awareness Month, which is coming up in May, which I'm excited about. It's an opportunity for all of us to learn. I learned from you guys too. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. If you have any topics that you're interested about regarding mental health or addiction, they're all interrelated. I've done a lot of addiction work as well throughout my career. So Mental Health Awareness Month is where we'll have the opportunity to, I'll have the opportunity to share more about different things that I've learned along the way in my field. It could be how society and the church views mental health, maybe some taboo topics that people have come to identify with regarding mental health. It could be the thought about taking medication. Some people aren't comfortable with that, some people don't believe in that. So there's just a lot of different things to talk about. Or it could be family situations that you're going through. I've worked a lot with families, even in my own family, to where I can see how a loved one who's struggling with a severe mental illness can really impact the family and cause a lot of division and helplessness and confusion. And a lot of times people don't know or how to handle that. So that's probably a huge topic that I would like to share, because I've seen it with my own eyes in my own family, and I've seen it from the many people that I've helped. So I want to allow the opportunity, if you guys have anything that you're really wanting to know more about or talk about, because it could be an interactive experience, just let me know and we'll make it happen. So Mental Health Awareness Month in May, I'll be given a few opportunities by Pastor and Sister Londi to be able to provide that education and maybe even more testimony. Because I just gave you a little snippet of what I went through over the last 10 years of my life. So I'm sure there's much more that I can share. But I really appreciate all your guys' time, and just you guys listening to me means a lot, and everyone that supported me and came on here because they just wanted to see my face. Dad, if you're watching, I love you. And I'm sure my mom is watching too, but I love you guys, and I really hope to